Hey everyone, welcome to this week's conversation. I appreciate you tuning in. My guest tonight is an incredibly talented comedian, content creator, podcaster, and he's had a huge impact on me personally as well as a teacher in the stand-up comedy class I took earlier this year. Please welcome to the conversation, friend of the show and friend of mine, Jay Yoder. Jay, welcome, sir.
Oh, thanks for having me, Billy. Great. This is great. I'm excited to be on the show. Excited to be chatting with you. How you been?
I'll tell you what, you know what? Any better, Jay, it would be illegal, that's for sure. And I'm glad we were able to finally get our calendars together to do this because this is something I've been wanting to do for a while. And as I said in the intro, and folks, I just want everybody to know, Jay really did have a huge impact on me. I took this class back in January at Soul Joel's in Pottstown, and Jay was one of the instructors. And he put up with me for 6 weeks, which is a task in and of itself. But I just want to thank you, Jay, because the time, the effort, the wisdom, the knowledge that you shared with me, that you've learned over the years, really made a difference and definitely much appreciated.
Oh, you kidding me? It was one of the most fun things I've done in comedy. It was one of those things that I didn't anticipate doing. I mean, I've always been a teacher for 21 years, but not a stand-up comedy teacher. And it was really a fun endeavor to when Joel approached Steve and I about helping out with it. I didn't know to what extent, if it was just like a week or two, and then I realized just how much those skills were transferable and just how much fun it is connecting with people and people are passionate about something. I mean, that's how I got into teaching. I got into teaching because I was terrible at math, absolutely horrendous. I switched schools a bunch, and then my junior year, I went to three schools by October, and the third school was like this really rich kind of prep school, and I had to go get a math tutor. And what I started realizing is that eventually there were kids that actually were a little worse than I was, and I was started tutoring them. So even though I was by no means a master, I was able to help some of the other people in my class. And that's when I started to realize, like, you don't have to, there is no Wizard of Oz. There's just a bunch of men and women behind a curtain to help.
Hey everyone, thanks so much for tuning in. We appreciate each and every one of you. And we also appreciate our first and longest running sponsor of the show, Tom and his team of insurance professionals at the Malin Agency. If world class customer service and doing business with someone you can trust is important to you, give Tom and his team a call today for all your insurance needs. You have a way of teaching, demonstrating, just sharing that knowledge in a way that really resonates. Because obviously, in the comedy class, it's all adults, people from all walks of life, all coming there for different reasons, all looking to get different things out of it, which I think, in and of itself, from a teaching standpoint, can be maybe a little bit of a challenge because you got people of all varying ability levels, but all with different goals in mind. And that's one of the things I remember just kind of talking about even that first night. And you've been doing it now for quite a while, right? You got quite a few classes under your belt.
So yeah, we've actually done eight comedy classes. We're just having the graduation. Well, I think by the time this airs, we'll have finished that eighth class. Yeah,
Wow.
so we have another one rolling out. I believe the second Wednesday in October is the first of the next class. But yeah, we're
Okay.
pretty much running them every season, which has been a lot of fun. And I'm gonna start offering some one-offs, like some one-day workshops, like hosting, like the art of hosting and producing shows.
Wow.
Just thought about maybe doing a social media one. I just did one for a New York City comedy school that I work for called the American Comedy Institute. And on Sunday, I ran a 3 hour Zoom one on turning stories into stand-up, which was really successful. And, people came with stories. There was time for them to work it out. And then by the end, share the edited version of that. So I was like, oh, maybe I could bring that there as well. So yeah, I'm hoping to offer some more one-offs too, because I know
Wow.
6 weeks could be a tough commitment for people too.
Yeah, but I have to tell you though, Jay, and I mean this, I'm not just saying this because you're here, that I'm a fan of Joel's, but for the cost to get that level of instruction,
Yeah.
that level of expertise, whether it's from you or from Steve or from Joel, And then a video at the end of your graduation show, you literally can't beat it. I mean, it
No.
is fun. In fact, I loved it so much, I took it a second time. And those rumors of me being held back and I failed, they're not true. And Jay, if you could have my back on that, there's some people that are like, oh, you had to take it a second time because you failed.
No,
It's
it's
not
meant to
true.
be. It's meant to be taken again and again.
Yeah.
And that you're right. Like, and all of that was intentional. Like Joel wanted to build a scene there, and as someone who goes there, that's my home club. Like, I want to see people working on stuff with purpose, and whether they're it's like when I tell my Latin students at school, like, I don't expect they're going to be Latin scholars, but like you don't go to the gym only to be an Olympic athlete. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so it's like your goals don't have to be the same. They just have to be to get up there and try to make people laugh. And so intentionally, I guess I should say.
Yes.
But we didn't want it to be cost prohibitive, right? And that's the other thing. You're not like, we for $250, you're gonna get six 2.5 hour sessions, group sessions. You're going to get, like you said, video, headshot, a show, to get all of that for $250. I mean, you would spend more on that going out to eat six times,
Yes.
so it's like, and now you're going to leave with something to show for it besides, a bigger stomach. So it's like,
Yeah.
you want to do it. So we wanted that. And it's designed to be taken again and again because you're building a new set. Like, that's actually the school that I work for in New York. It's called the American Comedy Institute, and it's the longest running one in New York City. He's been doing it for 36 years. It's a guy
Wow.
named Steve Rosenfield who wrote a book called Mastering Stand Up, which was actually when I decided to start doing stand up and going to open mics. It was one of the two books I bought on Amazon as I was trying to become a student myself of the craft. And now I'm his right hand man. I get to work with him a lot. And just seeing how he runs it and how every month at least half of his workshop are repeats who are coming back to either sharpen or build a new five. And so, like, that's how I wanted it to be. I wanted people to feel like they could take it again, and they might meet new people, and it's
Yeah.
going to be a different experience. So yeah, it was really designed for that. Whether it's someone who's just like, hey, I hate public speaking, but I kind of like making people laugh. Let's see if I could do it. And I love that it's a mix of people, people who maybe been doing open. I love it. So it's like, that's what I love about language teaching for my high school classes is they're mixed levels. I love when I have like some seniors and juniors mixed in with some of the lower classmen because you get to build a community that way.
No, that's all great points, and it really is true. And I may have to go back for a third time. Then, you got me thinking again about all those benefits. And one of the
Yeah,
things,
well, now it's a little different. It's this past couple, it's been Joel and I, and then we've been bringing in some New York City comics to sit in like week two, and then they come back at like week 4 or 5. And so then that way that, you
wow,
have another person that's kind of popping in. Kunal Arora from New York City was this past session. He came in weeks 2 and 4 and got to see, even in his short time, a little growth between the two. And so it was kind of fun. So we keep shaking it up. So it's never the same course twice,
okay.
which is cool.
No, absolutely. And there's another aspect of it that I'm going to come back to, and that's the writing, because I think that's where the biggest learning was for me. And also, I think the biggest challenge, at least for me. I've taken the stage many times and I've written a lot of different things, but what it takes to write a good, funny, consistently funny setup, punch, 5 minute set, I had no idea. So again,
Mm,
I want to come back to that and talk a little bit about
yeah.
your process. But first, you mentioned, Jay, about your experience as a teacher outside of the comedy class as a teacher for many years. So I'd like to know what was it? How did it all come about that you decided at some point to say, you know what? I think I want to go up there, take that mic, try to make some people laugh on purpose. What inspired you to start that journey, and when did it happen?
Yeah. So I guess if I kind of work started from when I decided and work backwards a little bit, like it was pandemic first off. So
Mm,
I think everybody was in this stage of unknown and things were upside down. And, like everybody, I was sort of looking at my life and looking at what I was doing and asking myself, was it fulfilling? Was it what I expected?
Hmm.
Because a lot of times we just put our head down in life and put the work in, and sometimes we forget to look up and kind of see pr what progress have we made. And I think for me, I was in a part where I found like I wasn't laughing as much as I normally laughed. And my wife and I always loved comedy, and we were trying to like just manage our daughters, and my mom was living with us in our bubble, and it was just so many things happening. We're trying to teach, they're trying to learn. It was such a tumultuous time
Yeah.
that we dedicated Tuesday nights to getting out of the house, my wife and I, and going to Joel's to watch the open mic because our last date before the shutdown was Valentine's Day at Joel's indoor club because
Oh,
it was right by
wow.
our house and we loved comedy. We That's when we go to bed at night, we would put Pandora on and put a famous comedian in, and like that's just what her and I did. Whenever we would go to a new city, we'd find a comedy club. So when we were doing that, we were just outside for 3 hours on a Tuesday, just happy to not be home and like watching 40 comics come up and do 4 minute sets of all walks of life. And I think after a while, I started saying, I'd like to try it. So I got the books from Amazon. I got Steve's Mastering Stand Up. I got the Comedy Bible. And
Ah,
the two of them are very different books, but it helped me get away from work because work was so overwhelming. I was doing too much. I was like Atlas trying to keep the entire school district on my back because everybody was looking to me to help them with the technology. How do we MacGyver this new world? How do we take attendance? Like all these minutia things. And
wow.
without getting any extra money or anything else, I was just giving more of myself, and I was getting burnt out. And so this comedy and me like reading about it or trying to write it, going to Joel's, it just put me at recess. When you're like a kid and you're just out at
Yeah.
recess, you're not thinking about your chores, you're not thinking about cleaning your room, you're not thinking about the science test next Wednesday. You're just in the moment. And that was the only thing that maintained my focus without me wandering to check an email or wandering to my. And so I just did that. And then I started like, I didn't go up at first. I just watched for months. And then as I was reading the book and stuff, it would tell you to go do like the Comedy Bible gives you tasks. And one of them was to
Oh,
go
yeah.
watch stand-up comedy and write down people's attitude and persona. And so I would sit there at the open mic with a notebook and I'd write down everybody's persona or what I thought they were trying to do. And then one time it was like, go interview a comedian you like. And so I found one of the guys that came every week that I really liked, a guy named Matt Peoples, who I just thought was so personable and had this charm and was like fun to listen to and, talk to him a little bit. And so I just started doing some of the stuff. And then finally I was just like, let's just get up there. So for New Year's, it was like my New Year's resolution going into 2021, to just kind of get up there and do it. And then I got addicted, like once I did it, then it was like, all right, I got to write a new 4 minutes for next week. And I got to start working on it. So like then putting the time in the week to writing the story and getting it to memory and then getting back up there the next Tuesday. And then I started setting goals. I was like, let's do 100 open mics this year and just see if you can do 100. And this was during COVID, so there were only like two mics a
Oh,
week. So I was like,
yeah.
all right, well, if I only take off for Christmas and like New Year's
You could
and
do
I do all those two every week, I can get 100. But other things opened up. I hit 100 within like 9 months. And then it was just actually my best friend, my best friend sent me, it's my blurred background, you can't see it, but it was a trophy with a goat at the top, and it was like for completing 100 stand-up open
Wow.
mics. A good buddy of mine that I grew up with, who he and I always kind of pushed each other as kids to like, be better, do an extra draft of the English paper, like do the things that the other kids weren't doing so we could
Yeah.
get out of there. And we both did. He actually teaches for UNC Chapel Hill and NYU in the summers and as like a doctorate. And I, tell jokes about my daughter. But so, we're not the same, but we are the same. But that's
Yeah.
how it started. It started as this thing that I was like, it's like Tuesday night bowling night. And
Yeah.
wouldn't it be fun if? And it was what I looked forward to every week. I couldn't wait till the next Tuesday. I couldn't wait. And then, it just kind of became even a little bit more serious. I started getting opportunities to host mics, and then people asked me to be on shows, and it just kind of snowballed from there. And now I can't imagine doing anything else. Now I work part-time. I'm like a part-time teacher now. I've been able to drop to part-time status because I'm earning enough from all the various things you can do within comedy. And I couldn't have imagined a life like this. If you had told me 5 years ago this would be my life, I'd have said you were crazy. But now it's like pretty awesome. So I'm like really stoked about. I'm actually doing a conference on Saturday. I'm performing at a early childhood educator conference in Maryland. I'm doing a workshop for 90 minutes on, humor, helping teachers find levity in the classroom and find, infuse funny into sort of what they're not just the classroom but just like they're themselves, not to take themselves too seriously, and some of those things that teachers can do. And then also I'm the 90-minute keynote at the end of the whole conference, where I'm going to kind of share my life as a student, a teacher, and then how I eventually found comedy. So I'm been working hard on that, so I'm very excited to share that too. And so that's kind of another fun public speaking thing that's sort of come out of all of this, where schools will invite me in, which has been a lot of fun.
I have to say, you talked about you and your buddy who had given you that trophy, how you kind of pushed each other. Jay, one of the things that absolutely fascinates me about you, and I actually mentioned this to you a couple weeks ago. I can't even remember where we were because we crossed paths in a few different places,
Mhm.
but I remember saying to you, is there a night that goes by when you're not on stage somewhere, whether it's an open mic or performing? I mean, you
Yeah.
are honing and fine-tuning your craft and just
Mhm.
literally the hardest working guy I've ever seen in this business. It just blows me away.
Yeah, I've always been super hardworking. Like, so all of that energy just had been going into education and teaching and my classes and coaching. I was big in coaching. I was coaching football in the fall and basketball. My passion was always baseball. So I coached all the way up to varsity. And then COVID, I was the assistant varsity. So I've been doing that for 17 years. And so I was always doing so much, but like now I really just started channeling all of that stuff into comedy. And yeah, to answer your question, I would say Sundays and Mondays, if any, it would be those 2 days.
Wow.
Generally Sunday. I mean, sometimes I'm on a weekend like board teachers, it's Thursday through Sunday, so sometimes Sunday, or I have a couple like birthday parties. Like I'm doing a hundredth birthday party at the end of like October. I have another like 50th birthday coming up at the end of this month. So like and those are on Sundays, but like so sometimes a gig will come up that's like if the money's good, I'm like, oh yeah, like I'll go do it. But normally Sundays is pretty family day.
Yeah.
Like yesterday was like Saturday. Saturday, I went and did a podcast at 10 a.m. I did the 3 hour Zoom call for teaching a stand-up course. Then I got asked to do a backyard festival show for Meredith Steyer in Pottstown. And then I drove 2 hours to Scranton to close out a Don't Tell show in Scranton. And then I drove home, got home just before midnight. And then at 7 a.m., I was working the concession, putting hot dogs on rollers at the cheerleading football games for my dog. 'Cause my wife's like, you got to knock out the volunteer hours for me. So then I had to do like, almost 4 hour shift from 7 to 11. But then it was like, then I had other stuff to do. I had a friend in the hospital just fell off a ladder. He was in a trauma unit. So I went up and saw him. And then I go watch my daughter, then take my other daughter to soccer. And and the day gets away from you. And she wanted to go to the library on the way home. So yeah, I try to shove as much stuff in every day as possible. But Sundays are the day for the family. And, you know, so yeah, Sundays I would say is normally the day I don't. But like tonight, I'm doing this instead of going out. Normally, Mondays, sometimes I'll go to New Hope. They have a great mic at 9 o'clock called John and Peters. John and Peters is the name of the establishment. And Fat Lady and Manny Unk has one. So, every once in a while, who's to say I won't sneak out for Manny Unk at 8 o'clock after this? I don't know.
Wow.
Uh, but yeah, you're right. I mean, because otherwise I can't, it's not like New York City. I'm older. Like, a typical comic in New York City who's grinding is going out, maybe doing 4 or 5 mics a day, so they're getting up like
Wow.
25, 30 times a week. So like even still, I still look at what I'm doing and saying, well, it's not enough in the grand scheme of things. I mean, yeah, it's big for here, but like I don't, we can't like, you can't find the stage time like that around here. You can, but you gotta really hunt.
Yeah, and there's some driving involved too, I
Yeah,
guess.
and you got to weigh out. I got to weigh out how much I want to be tired tomorrow, and how much is it worth that time on stage? And is it 3 minutes? Is it 7 minutes? Is it 10 minutes? Like, I have to weigh all those things out because I'm not a spring chicken like a lot of these guys that, if you've only been in the comedy game 4 years like myself, 4 or 5 years, you should be grinding pretty hard, but you're also usually not a 42-year-old guy with two kids and a job, so it's I have to do my own thing, and I'll tell you what, my own thing's been working, so I'm gonna keep trusting my gut and rely on sort of that, and make sure my family's got to be paramount because I'm only doing all this to make sure that we have a better life and they have a father who's happy, so that when I'm with them, I'm
Yeah.
present and I'm not wishing I was doing something else.
No, that is so important, and I think that it sounds like when you're doing something that you love to do, I mean it's work, but it's not. It's a different feeling and a different level of stress and different
Yes.
energy. But sometimes you're getting the energy back, and like you said earlier in our conversation, that first time you got that laugh, you were hooked, and I can definitely identify with that after what happened in January. Taking the class and now I just like, man, I got to reevaluate what I'm doing because, I work full time too. I do the show and I'm trying to get out, but man, it would take me 5 years to do what you do probably in 3 to 6 months. But
Yeah,
man, that is
I
amazing.
mean, yeah, and that's the other thing too is like, I don't know where I read it recently. It's like the key is to not like walk into a room and hope you're the best in that room. It's to be able to walk into a room and not compare yourself to anybody in that
Yeah.
room. You know, because I spent most of my life doing that, and then you get into this thing of like imposter syndrome, which I think a lot of people feel in any job. I felt it as a teacher for a while, coach for a while. And I haven't felt I don't feel that way um now because a lot of the times when I'm on stage, I'm talking about my real life.
Yeah.
I'm sharing a lot of myself. I mean, even this talk that I'm doing for the teacher convention, um, I was having someone kind of look over it with me to make sure that my through line and all the things I think are there are there. And the person that I was working with was like, yeah, he's like, you're really sharing a lot of yourself here. And I was like, yeah, it feels good. Like I lived a lot of my life like I was in witness protection growing up. I kind of kept close to the vest, my family and a lot of that. And now it's very liberating to share it. And in terms of stand up, it gives me material that's unique to me. It makes me a unicorn. It makes me who I
Yeah.
am. And I'm really excited to share. I've had this crazy life and it should count for something. So I should, instead of hiding it, now I'm sharing it. And it's changed my whole outlook. It's changed everything. So it's been a blessing. So I'm just lucky that people are giving me the opportunity to keep doing all this stuff. So
Yeah, and it's genuine too, and that's something that I think really comes through. It's relatable, it's genuine, but like you said, it's you, it's your life, but you're putting it out there in such a way that I've had the chance on many occasions to see people from all walks of life, not just teachers who enjoy. Like I know when you did the show a few weeks back with Chip Chantry, a lot of the folks there were teachers. It was kind of a back to school show
yeah.
with Joel's. But there were a lot of people there who weren't teachers, and everybody had a blast because whether it's your experience as a dad, as a son, all those different things, you just have a way of just being so relatable. I think to whoever it is in the audience, they're going to
Mhm.
love it. They're going to enjoy it. And that brings me, Jay, to my next question, which is if you look back at all that you've packed into this relatively short, like 5 year or so period, what would you say? You've packed about 20 years into 5 years, actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
What would you say are some of your favorite memories, of your days in comedy so far?
The it's my initial reaction is like, getting to be on the board teachers comedy tour, getting that whole experience for a couple reasons. One, I mean, it's on a major stage. I'll never forget. actually have a sign hanging up here in my office. That's the very first show I did with them. When they had us, it was at a place called the Kodak Theater in Rochester, New York,
Hmm.
which I believe is just about a 2,000 seater, maybe like a 1,700 seater. And it was a February 22nd, 2023. And I remember going to getting backstage and, we got picked up in like this big black Escalade and they're driving us through the back entrance and we're going through all these like down to this like green room and it's like fully stocked. And then they're like, oh, you can go on, they haven't opened the doors yet. So you could go out onto the stage and see the space and, just looking out at 1,700 seats that are going to be filled with people for a sold out show. And I remember FaceTiming my daughters and my wife, and I showed them the theater. My 8-year-old was like, "Daddy, I'm scared for you." Uh, but like, when I did that show, my daughter, my autistic daughter, had a piano recital that day, so I didn't get to go to that. But
Hmm.
I never would have imagined her being able to go in front of her class and then like play the piano or do anything in front of her class that wasn't something that they would bully her for. So I didn't imagine that for her, and I don't think I had imagined myself walking out onto a stage to tell that stuff. So that we were both doing it at the same time, I felt very emotional about that.
Yeah.
Because it was just, it's like whatever you think is impossible, whatever you think you're not capable of doing, I think there's a fallacy to that where people can really just believe they don't deserve something or that
Hmm.
it's not attainable. And so I think that was something. And just being on the tour and getting flown to places and then picked up and, just all of the things they want to know what music you want to walk out to, what music you want when you walk off. And like you're making promos of you so that when you get on there, there's all this footage of B-roll from other things there, and you're just like, wow, like that's me. They're doing that for me. That's my name on that giant screen behind me on the stage. And yeah, I think just getting to be a part of that, flying down to Florida and doing their podcasts and filming skits that they show before the shows. And so I think that was like it was a level of, and then it's like teachers. So it's like not only is it
Hmm.
comedy, but it's something that I dedicated my life to, is I get to do it specifically for teachers. Like wow, like that. And who am I? Like, everybody else on that tour had either been a comedian for 15 years or had a million social media followers. And I was like just this Spanish and Latin teacher from Pottstown, Pennsylvania. So, I think getting the opportunity to be a part of that and having it be now I'm going to be in my third year with them. And I think that's been something really cool. But having my picture on the wall at Joel's. I mean, Joel's was the first place I ever, stood on a stage and tried to tell jokes, and I paid for that luxury at first, like $5 or whatever it was at first. And to think now that I'm getting paid and my face is on the wall, and
Wow.
I didn't even know if Joel knew my name for the first, 6 months I was there. So just to see the growth in being a guy just sitting in a sand pit to my face is on the wall and on the website. And so I think it's kind of cool. I think those things are kind of fun. And it's cool to be at Joel's and have people come up and say how much they enjoyed the show, or just people that know me and know me by my name. And um, I also got to rename myself because my first name isn't Jay. Jay is my initials. So when I first signed up for the first open mic, I didn't want to put like my full name. I was a teacher, so I just put my first letter of my name, Jay. And so then it just kind of stuck, and
Hmm.
I just kind of kept it. And I was at this kind of like, butterfly caterpillar butterfly phase of my life where I was crying, I wanted to start fresh. I wanted there to be this rebirth
Hmm.
of like me only doing things in life that have, for lack of a better term, fuck yes energy, I
Yeah.
guess would be, but like I only wanted to do things that felt really good. And so part of that was like shedding that name and going by Jay. And now when people call me Jay, I know where they know me from. And
Oh,
um
wow.
so there was just a lot. So I think all of those things kind of coming together are just, I guess, a culmination of my favorite moments.
Wow, that is, it's what's amazing to me, Jay, is not even so much the moments themselves, but how you reflected on them and how much they meant to you, and just going into that level of detail. I mean, because it's one thing for somebody to say, "Oh, the time I did this or the time I did that," but just sort of hearing the backstory of all that those events meant to you. That's really that's powerful stuff. It really
Yeah.
is, and it's inspirational. You know, that's another thing. And like I said, I think that regardless of how much more tenure those other folks may have had than you in the comedy business, there's one thing in the short time that I've gotten to know you, no one will ever outwork you. I don't see that ever
Yeah.
happening. And there's also just an inherent skill, because that was something I want to just circle back to real quick. And it's the writing. Like, I really didn't know how to write jokes. I've written songs, I've written speeches, I've written a lot of things. And I remember coming up with some stories and things that I thought were funny. But the way you were able to even massage the stuff other people wrote, that was because I know myself, people would ask me to take a look at different things. And that could be tougher than writing something yourself, I think, is trying to get in there and write or finish something off for someone else. So what does that writing process look like for you when you're writing new material?
Yeah, it was a rocky process for a while. Like at first, I kind of was like it was like I was writing editorials at first. So like,
Mm,
you know, I would write something, but it was like I used to write for like the school newspaper and stuff like that. So a lot of times it was really essay style writing at first that didn't really translate well to set up punch, and like it was a long road for me at first. So, but I knew I had the content I wanted to talk about. It was just the way in which. And so things take a lot of time. Like things to massage a bit into something that I know is going to work way more times than it's not going to work. It's such a long process. There's certain bits that I know that I've tried to tell early on that just had to put in the back burner. But so I think it always starts with the block of marble, like you just got to write out whatever you think it
mm,
is. At least I do. Like if there's an incident that happened to me or something, I'll write it out. And like sometimes it's as simple as I'll write it in like a little text message to a friend just to get it out. Because maybe I'm somewhere where I just have my phone on me right now. I'm not a big notebook writer. I always carry a notebook, but my notebook is merely for me to rewrite set lists, like in the order I might want to tell
mm.
them, but I'm never actually writing in my notebook other than writing or looking back at set lists that I've done in other places or um yeah, I like to write everything out, and then from there you're kind of like, like what's funny about this? I'm really into wordplay. So I've always been I really love a good analogy. I've always used analogies, even teaching, so I try to just a lot of that comes naturally to me because of when I'm explaining things to kids, I'm always using analogies. Like I was talking about, verb endings with my kids, and I have a Mr. Potato Head on my desk because I'm like, it's like Mr. Potato Head, it's like you have the base, and now it's just a bunch of these pieces that you have to know when to put them and where to put them. Or even when I was helping teachers during the pandemic and they would freak out because Zoom changed and some of the
Oh,
buttons are around. I'm like, well, it's no different than you being someone who goes to McDonald's and now you're at Burger King. They all have a chicken sandwich. It's just number five instead of number seven. So I think a lot of those things I would kind of work in that I thought were kind of clever. But yeah, I was really at first I struggled because I wrote like editorials.
mm,
And then I would just have to really go out and try them and see that they weren't working and then shorten it. Or I'd have a lot of people in my ear. Like people would come up to me like, oh, try this or hey, do that. Like so I wouldn't have been half as good if I didn't have people like Rob Stant was a comic who was, a little ahead of me. It started a few years before the pandemic. And he was always at Joel's, and he would come up to me for whatever reason and just say, "Hey, that was funny. You should try this." And I would always try it. If
mm,
somebody gave me something, I would always try it. No shame. I was like, or Dan DePriel is a good friend of mine that's in comedy, and he's a really good. His brain thinks in that stuff. So a lot of times he and I would go to a coffee shop, and I would kind of say the bit out, and then he would kind of help me to kind of chisel that out and see that. So yeah, a lot of it was just having a community of comics to try stuff out on, and then and then eventually your brain just starts seeing it. You just
Hmm.
start being like, oh, okay, I can get to this faster. I don't have to say that. I didn't need to say that phrase. It didn't serve anything. It's like, or the people already thought it, so they didn't need me to say it out loud. And it just takes a while. It just takes a while to do that. But I was always starting with such like stories, some unique stories that at least I knew people were going to be interested in what I said. They just maybe weren't laughing as much as I
Yeah.
wanted them to laugh. So, I mean, anybody who's trying to write comedy, I'd say just whatever you think is funny, start there, and then you'll figure out the Venn diagram of what you and the audience think are funny. And it's just testing it out. And I would work it into conversations. The best thing I could have done was at lunch before people knew I was really doing stand up at work. As soon as they would talk about a topic that I was already doing, I'm like, oh, this is a perfect segue. Let me see if I can keep it so natural in this conversation that they don't even know I'm working on a bit right now. And let me see if they'll laugh where I think they would laugh. I remember doing
Hmm.
that at a golf outing I was at. And like, everybody's rolling over. I'm like, oh, this is cool. Like, it's like an extra open mic or Facebook. I'll float a premise on Facebook and see who reacts to it and see if they comment and then I can see if it's worth, developing, if it's relatable or do
Yeah.
a quick video now on TikTok or whatever and see what people pick up on,
Oh,
you
those
know.
are all great ideas, and that's why I mentioned earlier. I think some of the, all the various content that you put out is enjoyable and entertaining, relatable, all those kind of things on all the social media formats. And before we go any further, Jay, one thing I wanted to, I'd be remiss if I didn't bring this aspect of your life up, and that's your podcast, Jaywalking, which is awesome, by the way. So, what inspired you to start that podcast? I know you've done a couple over the years, but what
Yes.
inspired this particular one, and what can you tell us about it? What can folks expect to see when they go check out Jaywalking Life Unfiltered?
They're just hearing me. So like if you're like, hey, I don't mind listening to this guy. So it's kind of like whatever's happened to me that week. Like that's like it's kind of what I wanted it to be is like what's on my mind right now.
Hmm.
You know, um, what maybe it'll be something that'll eventually come out on stage but maybe it's something serious I want to talk about one time I interviewed my 9-year-old came on and we talked about our family vacation together and
I saw that one. Yeah.
so yeah, I just kind of wanted something that I had full control over that I wasn't compromising and I don't mind it. I like collaborating and I was doing that on the other podcast, but I was like I kind of wanted my own space and I thought, like I've got a lot of stories, I've got a lot of interesting things and then so I did some solo episodes at first and then I've started bringing guests on as well. And I like the banter of it. It's just sometimes it's hard because it's like, man, I'm paying money for these episodes. People will be like, oh, have me on your podcast. I'm like, not that I don't want, but it's like I got to be super intentional with, because again, listen, this is to me is like my brand, my business. Like, it's another way for people to see me that's maybe not stand up, but it's in the same vein of me and who I am. And so it's like another facet of me.
Hmm.
So, if you're looking for just stand-up clips, then you're not, or if you're looking for more stories or how I see the world, then that's what jaywalking is. It's just
Yeah.
me sitting down, either myself or with some friends, and talking about kind of what's going on and how we met. Like usually when I have somebody on, I talk about like how we met, and kind of let the conversation, for lack of a better term, jaywalk from there.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and that's what I like about it. It is organic, and it is a conversation. It's not an interview, and that's really what over the years I've tried to do with this show is to have conversations as opposed to interviews with agendas, just kind of
Yeah,
see
yeah,
where things
exactly.
go.
Because you feel like you're at the couch. If it's someone you like and you're into what they're doing, then you want more of that. You wouldn't mind
Yeah.
listening to them. And I know that I do that with some of my favorite comedians. Like I just got done. I had to go to a doctor's appointment in Philly, and it was an hour and a half each way with traffic. So I got to listen to like Mike Birbiglia is like a big one of mine, and so often he has guests on people I hadn't heard of. So I'm always really excited to kind of see. It was a woman who writes for SNL and is a stand-up that I never would have.
Huh.
probably been introduced otherwise. And it was a really interesting conversation for an hour, or I listened to Two Bears, One Cave on the way down, which was just over an hour. That was Bert and Tom Segura, who like they're crazy, but I like the banter because it's very organic, it's very natural. Yeah, so I guess I'm just trying to find my own lane within
Yeah.
that. People joke like everybody's got a podcast now, but at the same time, I like it. I'm not trying to monetize it or anything. I'm just letting it be whatever it is, and it's a
Yeah.
cool outlet for me each week.
No, absolutely. Trust me, I can definitely relate. As I've been doing this now,
Yeah.
going on 8 years, and I just enjoy doing it. It's a labor of love, and it's because I get to have conversations like this, and that brings me, Jay, to I have two last questions for you, and they're two questions that I love asking everybody, and they're my favorite. Most questions I ask just kind of come up based on whatever we're saying, but these are two that I think I don't know. They generate the coolest answers. And the first one is if you look back since that first time you decided to go up and take that mic for the first time, that open mic back at Joel's, what would you say you're most proud of thus far?
Huh. I guess I'm proud that I just in my life, and I think a lot of people maybe go through this. I tell my students a lot of times, like, I don't want them to think there's this sword in the stone kind of philosophy. I think a lot of my life and sometimes you think that if I don't do it on the first pull clean, then
Hmm.
I'm just no good at it and I shouldn't do it. And I see that a lot with kids with language. Oh, I'm just no good at language, Mr. Yoder. I'm just no good at Latin. I'm just no good at Spanish. Um, and it's the ability to stick with something. Grit. There was a book I read by Angela Lee Duckworth, I guess, who studied at maybe UPenn, and she was a sociologist, and she studied people who went to West Point and was kind of trying to define the ones who made it versus didn't make it, and
Hmm.
what was the secret sauce. And ultimately, it was grit, the ability to kind of stick with something.
Yeah.
And she had some interesting things on either how we phrase things or language we use with people. And I actually took something out of her playbook and I do it with my own kids, where when they do an activity, they have to do it for at least 2 seasons. So, like, if you're doing gymnastics and you don't like it, you got to go back for another season. You got to do at least 2 seasons because you got to at least give it another shot. And not just
Wow.
bail. Because it's so easy to just bail on things.
Oh, yeah.
Plans with your friends, commitments, like. So I think I'm most proud of sticking with it, doing it so consistently, no matter how crazy it seemed. I remember I was like meeting with someone that I was meeting with someone who I took a workshop with, and they offered like, 6 sessions where you could like sit on Zoom with them for like a half hour and like work out stuff. And I remember signing up for that and sitting on the Zoom call and just being like, I don't know what this is or what I'm doing or if this is logical or this is a midlife crisis, but like I just I'm just so excited that I stuck with it and I've been giving it my all, and it's cool to see that because I think we all give up stuff in our life or we all
Yeah.
make concessions. So, you know, for me, it's just a blessing to be able to do it every day and have the consistency. So I guess I'm most proud of that. I'm still doing it.
No, there you go. And it is so tough. And I remember just kind of looking back in the short time that I've been doing it, and someone used the expression, they said it's terrifying and exhilarating at the same time, but there's so many opportunities where you can bomb or things not go well, and you can just say, that's it, I'm done. So I really think it's admirable the way you've stuck with it, but and the way you continue to grind and you literally grit out there day in, day out. Like I said earlier, fine
Yeah.
tuning your craft, and I have no doubt that you're just getting started. So I believe that wholeheartedly, Jay. And so that brings me to,
I'll add one more thing that just made me
yeah.
think of the fear,
Mm.
right? Because there is a fear. Like I remember when I first started going to Joel's, and it was like this tractor trailer bed in this like sand pit. And so in order to get on it, they had fashioned like a deck stair, like a little staircase up to thing. And so if you were next, you would be like standing behind, so you couldn't see the audience, but there was like the little pathway up to the podium there. And I just remember being there and just frightened about getting up. Would I forget it? Was it going to be stupid? Like, and then eventually trying to go to another mic I'd never been to. I remember driving down to Philly. My wife found one on Facebook that was Mel Harris was running out of Attic Brewing near like LaSalle's campus. So it wasn't a
Okay.
very good part of Philly, but like I drove down. It was all outdoors, and then I couldn't find parking. So I'm like, oh, I guess I should just turn around. And then I found parking. And then I got there and I'm like, oh, I can't find where the list is. Nobody seems to know. I should just leave. And then it was just like I was trying to find every reason I could, even though I just spent 45 minutes getting down here to leave. And then I eventually found the list, found some other comics that were waiting for the list. And then Mel got there and he's like, oh, it's random. You're first. And then I'm like, I'm first? Like, so then I'm like, oh my God, like, this is terrible. I should leave. Like, and and then I'm like, well, how much time do you guys normally do? He's like, oh, we do like 7 to 9. And you would have thought he told me 10 hours. I was like 7 to 9 minutes. Like, I was like, what am I going to do with all those other minutes? Because at Joel's we had only ever done four. I'd only done like 8 or 9 mics at this point. Um, so I was like, luckily, every time I did a mic, I tried. If the good, bad, or indifferent, I wrote a new set every week for Joel. So like for a while, I had a lot of different 4 minute sets. They were all trash, but like even if I could just take 10 seconds from each one, I could add it up. But I remember going like 7.5 minutes. At one point, I'm speaking Spanish with some guy. I'm like, then he was making fun of me for my accent. Then I was trying to teach them that how to roll their R's and what they taught me when I was little. So it was just like, but I just remember like the fear and always conquering the fear.
Yeah, you did it.
That like, and then again when the board teachers and being in front of that huge stage, and oh, they didn't have a clock or a light, so you just naturally had to know your time. I just had to know that I was at my time. And again, testament to audio recording myself so much that I knew which bits were 45, which were 60. But like just yeah, just the conquering the fear of every challenge. I remember, just anything, hosting a mic and the anxiety. And so yeah, I'm glad I didn't back down from any of that. And I think I learned a lot about myself and how
Yeah.
resilient and brave I can be. So I think that was kind of a cool feeling to see the progress, because I don't, I still get nerves, but nothing like when I'm at a board teacher show now, I'm like hype on the side. Before I used to be like wanted to run out the side of the stage. But and now I don't feel like I have to come out of a cannon. When I first started, I felt like I had to like just run out and be like clown-esque in the first thing just to get your attention.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so I like to see the progress of the how I've conquered fear all over these 4 years too.
Wow. That is huge and definitely something to be proud of, and also something I can completely identify with in my short time, because it's a different fear than I had going out. I've performed the national anthem in stadiums. I've been on television,
Really?
sung in front of large crowds, and was never as nervous as I was at that first graduation show at Joel's, because there was no music behind me. There was no band.
Yeah.
It was just me, that microphone, and all those people.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because, like, I think with like I did a lot of acting and stuff growing up and stuff, and I think I don't know if it's this singer-songwriter aspect of it, like then you're national anthem, okay, well it's a song that Francis Scott Key wrote, so there's no you don't have to worry about that. Like I think the anxiety of also will they like the content on top of the delivery that adds, maybe that's what adds that layer, that just makes it a little
Yeah.
bit more ooh, like will I be liked? That's how I described my first open.
Yes.
My first open mic, I did probably 10 minutes of material in 4 minutes. And it felt like a kid that had a friend over for the first time and wanted to show all their toys. Do you like this toy? You don't like it? Okay, let me go get another one. Okay, do you like this toy? Okay, let me go get another one. And I felt like I was that. Like and I wouldn't give them time to even enjoy the toy. I had already decided. I said the punchline, and before I finished the last syllable, I was like starting the next joke. So it's just like, there was literally no space for them to laugh, even if it was funny, because I was so like adrenaline pumped and nervous, you know?
Yeah, and I remember as you're saying that, Jay, I remember something another Jay Black told me earlier this year, and it was I guess he had reached a point where he realized you just have to like not care because you can't be out there like almost like I would find myself almost like physically leaning out waiting for that affirmation or whatever to come from a laugh or whatever. And he said it's when you get to that point where you're just going to do what you do, you're
Yeah.
not going to care, they'll respect that, and people will follow along with you as opposed to if you're out there, like you said, just we try this one, we try this one, we try this one.
Yeah. It does. There's a level of comfort with the confidence, and that's where I think the imposter syndrome
Oh,
has gone away because it's like, oh, okay, I'm, road tested, you know.
yes.
So, I'm actually opening for Jay in about a month in Mohegan Sun for a weekend up at Wisecrackers,
Oh, wow.
October 10th and 11th. Yeah, I'm opening for him, hosting for him for the weekend there.
Oh man, that's going to be a great show. That's for sure, man. Folks, if you're in the area anywhere drivable, you got to check that out. October 10th and 11th, the J and J show that night's going to be awesome. Awesome. All right, so Jay, I have one last question for you. And the one we just talked about, we kind of took a look back in terms of what you're most proud of. I want to switch gears now and look forward, look ahead a little bit. What would you say success would ultimately look like for you?
It's such a great question. One of my first time I ever had this kind of conversation, it was with Steve Rinaldi when I first met
Mm,
him. And he and I were driving up to New York like midweek, like Tuesdays and Wednesdays. We would meet after our day jobs and just, drive up to New York at like 6:30 at night, go hang out till like 10 or 11, then drive the 2 hours home and go to, like we were like really grinding, just trying to be in the scene or be around. And I remember having the conversation with him on some of those road trips about, people have to define for themselves what success is and what does that mean for you? And like that always kind of stuck with me because it is. It's like, I mean, I feel like I'm already successful in a level of like I'm really excited about where I am and what I'm
mm,
doing and the opportunities I'm getting and so I'm like really excited at the prospect of doing more talks like I'm doing for this conference at the weekend. And so I think just continuing to do this for people, continuing to give me the opportunity to have time with my family and take them on a really nice vacation, just having some of that downtime. Even, we've been lucky. We've been on like we're gonna be on like three cruises this year as a family. Where whenever we had a break from school, I just want to be able to take the family away somewhere. And so the ability for our family to kind of go see the world still and be able to do that with them is huge. And for me to be
mm.
doing what I love to pay for that to happen is amazing. So it's like, if I could keep doing what I'm doing, do more speaking opportunities, get to share my story with other teachers, and as well as continue to do the board teachers tour and eventually do my own headlining. I have what I believe is a really strong headlining set now that I've been kind of getting opportunities to go do. I'd love to keep doing that.
Mm.
So it's like I want to tour, I want to be in the clubs, I want to, even the other stuff. I want to also be in the clubs at night. I like that, you know, the like 10, 15-minute sets too, as well. Like, just being in a showcase of people too, because the networking and the camaraderie, and it's just a really fun community to be a part
Yeah.
of. So yeah, I just want to keep doing what I'm doing and maybe teaching less. Maybe I still want to teach, but but it would be nice to not have to grade as many papers because you can only divide up your hours so much in so many things. So and I've given over 21 years to grading papers, so I've been doing a lot of bits now about, if I was in the military, I'd retire with like a full pension and lifelong benefits. And I believe that. I believe that that era of being the teacher on the ground and doing all the cool things that kids need to stay engaged in a classroom, I'm a little like grandpa, it feels like. It's like I can do those cool things, but grandpa can only bounce you on his knee for so long before he needs a nap. So I'm feeling my age and teacher years because I went as hard as we talked about me going with comedy.
Yeah.
always went that way with education in my classroom, and Grandpa's tired. Grandpa's tired, and I love the kids, and I love instilling that. So I love all of that, but to do all the things this generation needs to stay focused with how crazy the digital screenagers are, it's intense to keep. How can I compete with TikTok? I mean, I had to join TikTok to compete with TikTok. Um, but like it's just a lot now. So I really feel like these younger educators, it's their game now. They got to step up and do that. So I would love to be in more of an educational consultant role and helping those young teachers in the same way that I'm helping young comedians. It would be really cool if I got to stay within the education realm that way, because it's like,
Yeah.
wow, I have 21 years of classroom experience. I would love to see myself pivot to that kind of role within education and then continue to do all the cool things I'm doing with comedy.
Well, that sounds like success to me, Jay, because I think to me the ultimate definition's always kind of been getting up in the morning and enjoying whatever it is you do,
Yeah.
and then being able to spend that time with your family. That's the icing on the cake. It all kind of comes together, and I want to thank you for taking time. Again, I know you're like one of the busiest people I know, so I appreciate you taking the time to join
Yeah.
me. I want to thank you for just all the, everything you've shared and the difference you've made in the lives of all the kids you've taught, what you bring to the adults that you're teaching comedy to, and just everything you do, the giving of yourself, the sharing of yourself, and just bringing knowledge, laughter, and joy to people. I really appreciate it. And again, just want to thank you so much. I've enjoyed every minute
Yeah.
of this conversation. I wish you all the best in the future. I look forward to seeing you at Joel's or wherever else we cross paths. Probably by the end of the week, I'm sure we'll see each
I'm
other
sure. Yeah, I'm
somewhere.
sure.
But
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate Bill. I appreciate all your kind words, and I love always you always have a smile on your face. It's just you're always a pleasure to run into. So, I look forward to us seeing each other like we've been every week almost. So, and I look forward to this coming out. And thank you everybody watching, and make sure you follow both of us and support us. And it's so easy to hit that share and make a comment and like. So if you're not already doing that for Bill, do it more. And come on over to my pages too. And you're on the toilet anyway. So I mean, what
yeah,
else are you doing?
absolutely. You
So
got time.
the algorithm, it doesn't cost you anything to put a coin in the machine. So we appreciate all the support for everybody watching this right now. So thank you guys.
Absolutely. And Jay, thank you again. Appreciate it. And folks, like Jay just said, thank you for watching. Without you, this wouldn't be possible. We'll see you next time.
It's tough though. We got cheaters. Anybody catching kids cheating in class? Ugh. And you know what it's like. When you catch a kid, you gotta have it without a shadow of his mother's doubts. Yeah. I caught a kid the other day, dead to rights though. He submitted a photo of his work, but his friend's name was signed at the top. It's like, dude, I used to cheat, copy off my friends. I didn't copy his name too. So I went in the next day to the class and I just let him have it. I was like, guys, I got into this to make a difference. I've failed you. And before you leave my class, you're gonna learn to cheat better. You know what I'm saying? It's simple. Edit, crop, submit. Come on. Pottstown, Pennsylvania, comedy capital. Did you hear that, sir? Do you see the billboards around there like, I choose Pottstown? This is... It's more of a court-mandated vibe. I don't know. Now, I know you middle school teachers know, but do the rest of you remember what middle school smells like? I mean, don't get me wrong, in the morning it's like Macy's with my grandma. Right, we got Axe body spray over here, Bath and Body Works over there. And then about 1:13 p.m. The hormones settle, the Axe wears off, and they smell like the onions on an Italian hoagie. I'm gonna miss the mask mandates, guys. I used to double mask in the afternoons.
This week's episode has been brought to you by Doherty & Company Insurance Services for all your business and personal insurance needs. our friends at Tennis Addiction in Exton, PA, and the Malin Agency, where exceeding expectations is how they do business.